the best information on the world internet. We encourage you to leave a subscription and like. I invite you to today's report from the front. Ukrainian naval drones carried out an attack on a Russian naval base near the port of Novorossiysk off the Black Sea coast at dawn, Russia's defense ministry reported. Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which manages the local fuel terminal, noted that the port is a key export point for Russia and that ship traffic was temporarily halted due to the strike. Explosions and sounds of gunfire could be heard by local residents and were described on Russian social media platforms. If the attack is confirmed, it will be the first such Ukrainian raid on a major Russian commercial. Emergency services in the southern city confirmed reports of explosions and notified security services. Conflicts in the Black Sea and adjacent ports intensified when Russia canceled a major grain supply agreement last month. That agreement allowed for the safe export of goods from blockaded locations, but after it ended, Russian missiles and drones attacked several facilities and grain silos in Ukraine, close to the Black Sea. A large Ropucha-class landing ship, named by online experts as the Olenigorsky Gornyak, has been damaged by a naval drone attack and is being towed in Novorossiysk. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. On August 3rd, Romania's charge d'affaires in the Russian Federation, K. Ionita, was summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry, where he was presented with the ministry's note on the introduction of quotas on the number of personnel at Romanian diplomatic and consular missions in Russia. On Thursday, August 3rd, explosions were heard in the temporarily occupied town of Tokmak in the Zaporizhia region. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that 13 Ukrainian drones, which were intended to carry out an attack on Crimea, had been neutralized. According to the ministry, 10 of the drones were destroyed by air defense systems, while the remaining 3 were neutralized by electronic warfare. No one was injured as a result of these incidents. On Thursday evening, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed that their retaliatory actions are complicated, but Ukrainian forces have the upper hand. The invaders are making every effort to hinder our troops, declared Zelensky during a late-night speech, noting that the clashes are not lacking in brutality. He stressed, however, that the Ukrainian army is in control regardless of the enemy's actions. Using Western weapons and training, Kiev launched retaliatory operations in June to drive Russian units out of the country's southern and eastern regions. Some, albeit limited successes, have been achieved since then, but Ukraine faces deep-pocketed Russian forces that have had several months to organize their defenses. Zelensky reported that fighting has taken place near Lyman, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka in eastern Ukraine, as well as on the southern front. Russian Defense Ministry Chief Sergei Shoigu paid a visit to troops stationed in Ukraine. He visited the headquarters of the Center Army Group involved in the Ukrainian conflict. Commanders of the Center Army Group briefed him on the situation, and Shoigu expressed his thanks to the troops for successfully carrying out offensive operations toward Lyman, according to the ministry. Shoigu noted the importance of warfare tactics, such as the use of preemptive fire against the enemy while pushing him out of occupied positions. The defense minister's visit came days after Russia's top-ranking general, Valery Gerasimov, paid a visit to troops in the southern Zaporizhia region. Shoigu and Gerasimov had previously been targeted by Yevgeny Prigozhin, founder of the Wagner mercenary group, who accused them of being incompetent before initiating a short-lived mutiny in June. Russian news sources report that authorities in the Kremlin are skeptical of assurances from the United States that Washington will support Moscow in the free export of food products if Russia decides to return to the Black Sea grain agreement. Reuters highlights that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told media representatives yesterday, "Obviously, in the event of a return to the agreement, we will continue to take all necessary steps to ensure that everyone, including Russia, can export their food and foodstuffs freely and safely." Russia has long argued that the inability to restart the ammonia pipeline to Odessa and the exclusion of the Russian Agricultural Bank from the SWIFT payment system have effectively blocked Russia's ability to export certain goods. Russian forces are conducting offensive operations in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The Ukrainian military conducted 40 combat clashes with Russian forces in the south and southeast, to Ivanivsk in the north and southeast, to Avdiivka, and in the southeast to Pervomaisk, Mariinka in the west to Staromayorsk, and in the east to Urozhan, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported this morning. The Russian army shelled Shevchenko, Respublikanysk, Berislav, Sadovo, Kherson and Dniprovsk in Kherson region, and Dmitriivka and Ochakiv in Mykolaiv region. The Russian Air Force carried out an airstrike on Odrado-Kamyanka, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported this morning. A series of explosions occurred in the Ukrainian KW-1 city of Berdyansk, which is currently under Russian occupation on Thursday evening. Ivan Fyodorov, mayor of the neighboring city of Melitopol, told Ukrainian TV that the explosions woke up the entire city. Fyodorov expressed speculation that the results of the efforts to eliminate the occupiers would be known within a day. He also pointed to the events of the previous day, when an ammunition depot was destroyed between Berdyansk and Primorsk, which exploded for at least several hours. There was also noise in Primorsk. In turn, Vladimir Rogov, a representative of the Russian military-civilian administration in Zaporizhia, said the attack took place shortly after 1 a.m. local time. He added that the air defense responded, destroying all 5 drones attacking the city. Rogov assured Telegram that all air targets were destroyed and no casualties or damage were reported as a result of the attack. Security agency ABW have detained a Belarusian citizen, Mikhail A., who is suspected of operating as part of a spy network working for Russia on Polish soil. This is the 16th person detained in connection with the case. Mikhail A. is accused of tracking military facilities and ports and conducting propaganda activities. Mariusz Kamiński, Minister of Coordinator of Special Services, announced the detention on Twitter, stressing that the man had maintained contacts with Russian citizens and met with them in St. Petersburg and Crimea. The man was subsequently taken into custody. Testimony showed that the Belarusian had lived in Russian territory for several years, worked in Moscow between 2008 and 2010, and later moved to St. Petersburg. He also served a 6-year prison sentence in Russia. He is the 16th member of a spy network that was disbanded several months ago and included citizens of several countries across the eastern border. The group was involved in monitoring shipments of arms supplies to Ukraine and preparing diversionary acts in Poland. It also conducted propaganda activities against Poland. According to the press office of the Minister of the Coordinator of Special Services, the investigation by the Internal Security Agency is dynamic and still developing. Russia on Thursday fined Apple and Wikipedia for failing to remove information deemed untrue about Vladimir Putin's military actions in Ukraine. A court in Russia fined Apple 400,000 rubles, roughly equivalent to 4,000 euros, for failing to remove content from Apple Podcasts that was deemed false. State news agency TASS reported Russia's media regulator, Roskomnadzor, demanded that the company remove the material, which it said was aimed at destabilizing the political situation in the country. The same day, the court fined Wikipedia 3 million rubles, or roughly 29,000 euros, for the same offense. Russian media reports that this is the first such fine for Apple, while the Wikimedia Foundation, which owns Wikipedia, has been fined several times before. In April, it was fined for the 7th time for failing to remove prohibited content related to the Russian military. Apple suspended sales of all its products in Russia and curtailed Apple Pay services in the year 2022, responding to the Kremlin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Russia has increased planned defense spending in the 2000th year of the 23rd to more than $100 billion, equivalent to 1/3 of total state spending, according to an analysis of a government document by Reuters. This decision is undoubtedly related to the rising costs of the conflict in Ukraine, which are increasingly weighing on the country's budget. Defense spending has been steadily increased each month since last February, when President Vladimir Putin decided to send troops to Ukraine. In June of 2023, Russia abandoned publishing details of its spending, putting the government's finances in a state of greater uncertainty. The figures presented shed new light on Russia's financing of conflict-related activities, especially since detailed information on budget spending is no longer available. Additional data reveals that in the first half of the year 2023 alone, Russia allocated 12% more, or 600 billion rubles, for defense purposes than the originally planned amount of 4,980 billion rubles, or $54 billion, for the entire year 2023.